Welcome. Welcome, everyone. We're thrilled to have you with us today. While we're waiting for others to join, please tell us who you are and where you're from in the chat box. Feel free to include your contact information or LinkedIn profile if you'd like to be in touch with others who are present today. We're continuing to have people join us. My name is Jim McGinley, and I co-lead the Allies Across Ages Affinity Group of the Encore Network, and I'm facilitating today's meeting titled Working Across Generations to Engage Older Adults. For those who are not familiar with the Encore Network, we're a coalition of pro-aging leaders, advocates, and professionals who champion the civic, social, and economic contributions of people 50 plus. And we're very excited to bring you this webinar today. We have a few suggestions that we're up there to get this started. Please mute yourself during the webinar so background noise doesn't interfere with the ability for everyone to hear and participate. Please use the chat to submit questions, and we encourage you to place a cue or question in front of your question. That'll help us pick out your question from other comments in the chat. And this event is being recorded, and we'll send an email to all who registered for this event with a link to the recording, the slides, and relevant resources. Aaron, if you want to comment or put up our sponsor, who is Encore Palm Beach County. We're very pleased that they are sponsoring our session today. They've joined forces with the Encore Network in 2025, and we're thrilled to have them as part of our growing community in their financial support of this event. Today's program is a result of the collaboration with the Allies Across Ages Affinity Group. What it does is explore, feature, and support initiatives that connect people across generations in order to remove barriers to understanding and provide opportunity for people of all ages. We share experiences, we advocate for change, and we seek out projects that support this goal. We also want to thank Barb Richardson for introducing us to Kelly Minas, our speaker today. Once again, our focus is on working across generations to engage younger adults. Our three goals for this session are to provide fresh insight, concrete tools, and renewed confidence in engaging with young adults. Kelly's the one taking the lead on that goal. Identify shared interests around which we can build authentic relationships with younger people as a network, as professionals in the field of aging, and individual activists. And that's a goal for all of us today. And the third goal is to inform our audience about Allies Across Ages and invite participation in our current initiative, which is focused on developing an intergenerational approach to the challenges and opportunities presented by AI and the partners that we're exploring as pilot initiatives. Our agenda has three components. First, we'll hear from Kelly. Next, we'll open the floor to your questions. So as they occur to you, feel free to enter questions you have in the chat at the bottom of the screen. We'll be monitoring it, so enter them as they occur to you. And then I'll wrap up the formal part of our time together with some information about Allies Across Aging, as well as how you can take action after today's meeting. So now it gives me great pleasure to introduce Kelly Minas. She's the Executive Director for Center Evaluation and Funded Programs at the Center for Congregations, a nonprofit that helps congregations find and use the best resources to address their challenges and opportunities. Kelly also serves as a director for the Young Adult Initiative Coordination Program, a project that brings together a learning community of organizations that are invested in the question of how congregations can do ministry with young adults. Kelly, welcome, and I'll turn it over to you.
Thank you so much. And thanks to the Encore Network for the invitation today. It is truly the greatest pleasure to be with you all and to share some about the work that we have done in the Young Adult Initiative. So first, let me talk a little bit about my favorite subject, which is myself. Who am I? My name is Kelly Minas. In addition to working at the Center for Congregations in the field of evaluation and supporting Indiana congregations, I direct, on behalf of Lilly Endowment's Religion Division, the Young Adult Initiative Coordination Program. So obviously the center cares about congregational life. One secret about congregations is that they share a lot in common with many other types of organizations. In addition, of course, to faith claims and commitments, they, of course, have concerns about volunteers. They have concerns about administration. They have concerns about working with the community. They have concerns about, business needs, right? So even though this emerges out of a American Christian context, we think that at the Center for Congregations, we've learned a lot about organizational life that will be useful to all kinds of folks, whether you are in a workplace, in a voluntary association, in a community center or a community initiative. So I hope you'll keep that in mind today as I share some of this information. So in the Young Adult Initiative Coordination Program, we are a collective of 22 grantees of Lilly Endowment's Religion Division. So these are organizations that are largely seminaries or universities, higher education, but some other types of organizations as well. They have been gathering since 2016. Lilly Endowment gave them grants in 2016 to work on the question of how congregations can do ministry well with young adults. So when you hear me say that, I hope what you're also thinking is that this is a question of how organizations or associations or collectives of people of any kind can engage well with young adults. By young adults, we mean generally people between the ages of 23 and 29. In many cases, we expand that definition to include folks from about college age to folks through their mid-30s. It's a unique phase of life, also sometimes called emerging adulthood, that has some specific concerns, some specific interests, some specific ways of being that we're going to talk about some more in our next few slides. So this is 22 organizations who've been working on this since 2016, who have worked with hundreds of congregations directly, and therefore hundreds of young adults on this question of how congregations can do ministry well with them. One important thing to remember about this initiative is that what we were really trying to do here was equip what I call regular age adults, so folks who are not in the young adult category, to engage well with young adults. We're not speaking to young adults themselves. We don't think very much about young adults. We're more interested in helping people who are in these organizations, these collectives, these communities as individuals engage with younger people. So in this work, we were truly fortunate to have a really wonderful research-backed evaluation that interviewed, did focus groups, did surveys of all of the grantees, all of the congregations they worked with, all of the regular aged adult leaders and the young adults themselves. And what emerged from that excellent evaluation were 8 domains that we have learned that congregations or organizations or any group of people really must attend to in order to do ministry well or to engage well with young adults. So to create relationships that are mutually life-giving and sustainable. I will note that all of this knowledge lives online. You can find it at starforyoungadultministry.org. There are links to tons of resources. There are video overviews of a lot of the content that I'm going to share with you today, and we're adding more all the time. So if this interests you, I would encourage you to to check that out. So again, the 8 domains. I know that you can read, but I can also read, and I'm going to demonstrate that to you right now as I read to you the 8 domains that we uncovered. So we believe that in order for any organization or any group of people to work well, to have good relationships with young adults, these are the things they need to attend to. They need to attend to community. They need to listen well. They need to create and foster a culture that young adults want to be a part of. They need to walk alongside young adults on a values journey. They need to attend very well to good intergenerational relationships. They need to focus on young adult leadership. They need to focus differently on organizational leadership. And they need to think about frameworks, programs, and events. So what I'm going to do next is get into each of these domains and just like put a little bit of meat on these bones, right? Because this is very conceptual. We're going to talk now about some concrete ways that these things play out in any group of people's relationships with young adults. I will be scanning the chat as I go through, so feel free to answer questions. We will have another Q&A time at the end, so you can do that then as well. But as things come up, if I can answer them as we go through, I will pause occasionally and do that. So first, I'll say all the pictures you are about to see are from our gathering of these grantees who are working with young adults, and look how happy they are. And we could maybe all be so happy if we really nailed engaging in relationship with young adults. So the first domain that we're going to talk about is the domain of community. What do we mean by community? We mean providing young adults an opportunity to create and participate in a community that makes sense and is desired by them. And we believe in building support structures within that community and between individuals or groups. So it's not just a matter of meeting a young adult and bringing them into your space as you've already defined it. It means allowing them to engage in meaning making to help define what this collective and this group of people ought to attend to. One really important thing in this subject is to create deeper connection by celebrating victories and commiserating hardships. One really great way to relate with young adults is to ask them what they're excited about or ask them what's difficult for them right now, and then relate to them on the basis of that, right? This is a basic human relationship tool, but I think sometimes when young adults encounter regular aged or older adults, what they're expecting to hear is like counseling, advice giving, which is good and valuable, but there's also an opportunity to just express curiosity about what young adults are experiencing and relate to them there. One really important thing that I always advise groups of people about is that when you create opportunities for young adults to enter into your community, you cannot do it with the expectation that that effort will directly translate to a specific outcome. It's common in voluntary associations, in community service organizations, in workplaces, in churches, that if you invite young adults in, they're going to perform a very specific task as a result of that invitation. They're going to give money, they're going to become members, they're going to participate in some sort of specific way. Releasing that expectation is going to free up a lot of emotional space for good, sustained relationship. So in building community, leaders need to be authentic. They need to, regular aged adults should represent themselves as they are, right? Don't pretend to be someone different. Be inclusive by being curious about and demonstrating that you value difference. And also, importantly, in community settings, demonstrate that you can manage conflict. So demonstrate that you have an understanding of your own conflict style, the conflict style of others. That's also a really important feature in fostering a good community. Next, we're going to talk about listening. Obviously, part of this is just listening to the ideas of young adults, coming with curiosity, creating a space for them to give input. It requires leaning into empathy when connecting with this demographic. Again, we get back to this question of like, how can you invite them to share what's wonderful for them, what's difficult for them, and then lean into empathy and compassion when you hear their response. An important component of listening also to young adults is viewing them as fully fledged members of the community and fully fledged people. I think it can be easy, especially as we gain the wisdom of age, to think of young adults in that time of life as being on a journey to somewhere. We tend to think of young adulthood as being a journey from childhood to real adulthood. But it's really valuable actually to understand young adults as having wisdom that is born out of their own life experience and out of their own stage of life. So this is also a really important component of listening well. So to listen well, leaders or regular aged adults should build relationship, connect with young adults on a personal level. It also requires us as regular aged adults to allow ourselves to be known, right? Listening isn't just receiving, it's offering some sort of gentle feedback or demonstration of listening, and being vulnerable a little bit is a good way to allow ourselves to be known. But also in building relationships with young adults, to demonstrate that you are looking to give more than you receive is a really important sort of North Star. Listening well also requires compassion. So building others up instead of identifying failings. Demonstrating forgiveness of others, but also demonstrating as an adult, speaking with a young adult, forgiveness of yourself, right? To sort of model what you hope to see reflected in them, and to try to bring out the best in others, in other people, and in other situations. Another really critical component of good listening is to have equanimity, right? There's a fine line between the compassion that's required to listen to someone else well and getting swept away in their emotions, right? We want to experience the feelings of others as gentle waves and not tidal waves. And so it's a fine line to thread, but that skill is really important. Demonstrating equanimity is very important for good listening. We're going to talk next about culture. What is the kind of culture that you can foster that young adults want to be a part of? Really essential is demonstrating that we want to learn from failure, right? Young adulthood can be a period of trying new things, of experimentation. Demonstrating and affirming that there are opportunities to learn even when things don't go according to plan is a really wonderful gift that we can give to young adults in relationship. So allowing space for creative freedom, empowering people and young adults where you can to try something new. So if you're in a voluntary association, a young adult wants to become a part of that, they want to take leadership, allowing them to try and fail within some sort of organizational guardrails can be a wonderful opportunity to demonstrate that it is possible and important to learn from failure. So part of fostering this culture is being adaptable. So being steadfast in your goals, right? The things that are most important to you or the things that are most important to your organization, while also having some flexibility in how you approach progress to those goals. Experimentation with new ideas, new ways of thinking, even just inviting conversation about new ways of doing things can be really valuable in creating a culture that young adults want to be a part of. And just expecting change. Waking up every morning knowing that things may not continue to be done the way that we've always done them positions you well for relationship with young adults, because part of what can make us have some trepidation about engaging with young adults is this idea that they and their generation represents a change from the way that we're used to doing things. That's not always true, it's sometimes true, but the more you can prepare yourself internally for that dynamic, the more prepared you'll be to engage young adults in good relationships. The next domain we're going to talk about is values journey. In a congregational context, we call this a faith journey. Often in congregational life, churches think that this is the only way to engage young adults, right? They just really want to talk to them about spiritual questions. This is important for human relationship building, to engage young adults about the values that they hold deeply. But actually, the stuff that we scaffold around conversations about values can be more important, because there is no way to get to this, which is like the really meaty stuff of human relationship, without good listening, without creating a community that young adults want to be a part of, without sort of like tending to the relationship hygiene that's necessary to get to this. And so a sort of misstep that we can take on the road to relationship with young adults is to go right here. We want to talk, we don't want to do small talk. We want to get right in here. But it's really not possible to engage young adults responsibly about questions of values without doing all of the other stuff. But it's still a part of it. So how can you walk alongside a young adult on a journey of values? It means creating purposefully spaces where young adults can ask questions or have conversations about difficult or meaningful subjects. This can feel uncomfortable sometimes, especially if they're coming with a lot of questions about, values and ethics. You could get into conversations about politics and, the state of society today. Being able to sit a little bit with that discomfort is really important. It also means, though, making the positive contribution to them of equipping them with skills, language, openness, tools around the development and expression of their values. It is true that sometimes people in a young adult phase of life, they haven't had a lot of practice necessarily talking about their values, talking about their most deeply held beliefs, talking about the convictions that are most important to them. But that is something that we as regular aged adults can contribute, right? We have more experience doing this. What are ways to have conversations around our most deeply held beliefs that are still respectful, that still make space for other people, that invite a conversation rather than an argument? These are the sorts of positive contributions we can make in a relationship with young adults that they can't really find anywhere else. It also means supporting activities that allow young adults to live out their values. So if you are coming from like a nonprofit setting, if you have a mission statement, figuring out where that connects with young adults' convictions really opens the door to them wanting to get to know you more. So in walking alongside young adults on a values journey, what's required for leaders? Creating trust is really important. Part of creating trust is revealing that we don't have all the answers. It means admitting if we're wrong. That's part of creating trust. And it requires seeking input ourselves. So being invitational, once again, to young adults to talk about these things. It's also important, though, to demonstrate how we live out our own values, our own most deeply held convictions. It requires us to have, good practices around talking about them respectfully, engaging other people respectfully. We can model the sort of behavior we hope young adults will embody when it comes to questions of values. Explicitly, we identify in this work with young adults the question of intergenerational connections and relationships. So obviously, we ourselves may be in a situation where we're engaging a young adult and we ourselves are a regular age or older adult. But it also means putting young adults where we can in connection with other people we know or other people in our community who are of a different generation than them. This is actually something that young adults really, really yearn for. This is a big reason that we find young adults in places like voluntary associations and in congregations, is because they recognize how important that kind of relationship is. I remember when I moved to England to get my master's degree, so I was 21 at the time, the first thing that I did was find a local church to attend. Not because I had any interest in the faith claims of that church. I really would have taken almost anything, but I recognized as a 20-something that it was not good for me to only be around other people who were my age and had my same concerns. And lots of young adults recognize this. They recognize that they really are healthiest in intergenerational community. So where we can provide that for them, that's a really wonderful gift to be able to give. Part of what is required in this part of the work is generational literacy. And that means acknowledging and knowing about generational differences without over attributing everything to generational differences. So it is true that we come from sort of age stratified places and that who we are is in some way informed by the historical conditions of our youth, when we were growing up, what was going on in the economy, what was going on in society. How, we do observe that things change across generations, and some things are broadly true about generational cohorts. It's important to know what those things are, right? It would be difficult to engage well with a young adult and have no understanding that this young adult never lived in a time where there were no smartphones. That's really important. However, what we have to be cautious of is getting into a place where we over-attribute every difference we observe between people to those generational differences. So yes, be informed by understanding what's going on in different generations, historically speaking, but don't rely on it too much. Be curious about other people. Ask questions. Don't think that you know them just because you know how old they are. Other tactics or skills that are essential for intergenerational connection building, engaging in mentorship where possible, which is a slightly more formal take on being in relationship, that can be really useful. Part of being, we imagine that we would mentor a younger adult, but it's important actually also for young adults to see us be mentored by others, to demonstrate ourselves that you can get wisdom, that you can get good feedback, that you can get advice and counsel, that you can be in a life-giving relationship with someone. We should all strive to do that ourselves anyway. And once again, model what we hope young adults will also do. Another part of intergenerational relationship is digital literacy. What I mean by this is absolutely not that we should all be on TikTok. That is categorically not what I'm saying. But it is useful when trying to be in a relationship with younger adults to understand what it is that they're seeing, what it is that they're engaging with, what kinds of challenges come with digital life, and also what kind of benefits come with digital life. It is true that young adults are in what we call networked isolation, which means that they have lots of online connections, online friends, but it's not sustaining in the way that a real in-person relationship is. So numerically speaking, they may feel like, oh, I know lots of people. I talk to lots of people. I have lots of friends. But if they're not in your life in the way that a real in-person friend is, it's really not giving them the same thing. Understanding these kinds of features of digital life really helps us connect much better with young adults. Because again, it allows us to ask better questions, to lean in with empathy about what might be challenging for them in this context. So these, in addition to having that generational literacy, are really important tools for engaging young adults. So I have a few more. Young adult leadership. I think it's probably obvious by now that if you are in some sort of association or group of people and you're looking to invite young adults in, you've probably clocked by now that everything that I'm talking about is about relationship. And that what we're not talking about, at least not yet, is young adults in leadership formally within these associations of people that we might be participating in. However, if a young adult has bought into your community, if you've listened to them well, if they think that your culture is something they want to be a part of, they may be interested in leadership roles. So what do we do with them? It's important to center young adult priorities where we can and allow them to take leadership roles. That requires being resourceful, because something that we see happen a lot in congregations and other types of organizations is that we will give a lot of sort of lip service to wanting to invite young adults into leadership. And then they say, okay, I'm ready to be in leadership. And we're like, oh no, I actually don't have anywhere to put you. I actually don't have a role for you to do. We need to be thinking creatively about how young adults can demonstrate leadership in our contexts long before they're approaching us saying that they're ready to do it. It also means safeguarding the representation and leadership. It can happen sometimes, and we'll get to this in the next domain, that once young adults enter into formal leadership, they actually are met with perhaps more challenges and obstacles than an older adult might be for a variety of reasons. So having an advocate in you is really important, and that's a wonderful offering that you can make to them. So in addition to being resourceful, for young adults to be in leadership in your association or in your organization or your whatever your ensemble of people is, communicating well with them about what leadership means, like what the priorities are of leadership, how in your association or your group, how you think leaders behave well, like what that definition is very important. And recruiting responsibly for leadership is essential. So that means inviting their participation with enthusiasm. They will 100% clock if you're inviting them to, join your board or lead one of your cohorts and you don't really mean it. And you're really just doing it to check a box. That will be immediately evident to them. And that's a real relationship killer. So you need to invite participation enthusiastically. You need to build relationships before asking for that commitment. We hear stories in congregational life all the time. Our own president talks about going to church with his young adult son. The young adult son went to this church as a child, hadn't been for many years. First day he's back at church, the welcoming committee chairperson clocks that he's there, and he approaches him and he says, "Oh, wow, you've been gone for so long. I'm so happy to see you. Would you like to volunteer to be on the welcoming committee?" It's obvious to us from the outside what's wrong with that. That is not leading with relationship. That's just diving straight into what a young adult could do for us. But when we do it ourselves, it doesn't always seem so obvious. So it's important to check our own math about what it is that we're inviting young adults to do and why. And again, try to create a situation where we are giving more than we're receiving. It's also really important to demonstrate gratitude. This can be an ingredient that gets left out of relationships with young adults. Regularly express gratitude for their presence. Regularly express gratitude for their contributions. And don't just do it to their face individually. Do it in a public setting where everyone can see your gratitude. That really goes a long way toward fostering a sense of community as well. Organizational leadership. This is my favorite one. So what happens a lot is that young adults will come into your community. They'll say, "This is wonderful. I want to be a part of this. I want to be with these people." You will do the steps required to invite them into leadership. And they're so excited. They're like, "Look at this. They really mean it. They are putting me in charge of this thing. They're letting me run this event. They're letting me be on this board. They're letting me plan this whatever." And then someone else, it's never us personally, right? It's always someone else in this group of people. They're like, "I don't know. This makes me nervous. This young adult leading this. They've never done this before. I think, what if we just like assign someone to support them and actually run the show?" This is an incredibly common barrier that organizations experience. They will let young adults be a part of things up to a certain point, and then we start to get cold feet and we start to chicken out a little bit. So this is really about getting our own house in order once again. So it means ensuring that if you are going to invite young adults to participate in your community in some way, everyone at every level is in agreement that this is a priority, because it will come out very quickly if someone is not in favor of this. It also means promoting consistency. So making sure young adults know who is for them, like what specific people, if I'm having a difficult time, if I can't figure out how to do this, who is going to be prepared to resource me.
I don't know how, I'm going to have to wait until that.
It also means being present to counsel young adults about navigating the structure of your institution, your group, your community. We all know that sort of like political lowercase p questions come into play. And young adults don't always have a lot of experience dealing with that, and they need help to navigate it. So being present for them to help figure that out is really essential. So people who are going to do this well are going to use influence, right? Someone might have to cash in some social currency to clear the way for young adults to lead. It means understanding purpose. So connecting for the regular aged adults for the existing community, how supporting young people and being in relationship with young adults contributes to the larger purpose, the larger mission of whatever they're trying to do. It's always going to be the most compelling case to try a new thing, the thing that might scare us a little bit, if we really believe that it's feeding the mission, if it's feeding our most closely held values. So the more that people can draw that connection and draw that line, the more healthy this dynamic is going to be. And it really just requires creating buy-in. It requires inviting input from all parties. It includes explaining the why of what you're doing for the what. Again, getting to questions of purpose and value first. And it requires giving feedback, like doing a narrative for everyone else about how this is going, what's working well, what might be challenging, but really focusing on what kinds of fruits you're seeing as a result of being in a relationship with young adults. And so finally, once again, this is really all about people and not programs. If you want to engage young adults, absolutely the best thing you can do is have good relationship hygiene, be a good listener, foster a community they want to be a part of. People think that inviting young adults to participate in things means putting on a program. That's actually usually the last step. It's also sometimes not even a step that you need. However, some of you may be thinking, well, like in my context, we might have to do something with young adults, right? If you're coming from a nonprofit setting or some other type of organization, like maybe you want to have something for the young adults to do, and there are responsible ways to do this. So it requires largely seeking input from young adults about what kinds of activities or programs or engagements would be useful and interesting to them. But the main thing is to treat them as a stakeholder with authority. I think a lot of the challenges of developing programming that includes young adults is thinking that we have to have a crystal ball to understand what they're going to want and what they're going to like and what will benefit them. Far easier and more beneficial for your relationship with a young adult is to simply ask, what would you like to do? What kinds of things would benefit you? This requires us to have a learning stance, right? We need to be learners ourselves to understand things about learning styles, to understand things about program design. It's important, though, not to take it too far and think so much about designing a right program that we never actually execute a program. It's okay, once again, circling back to learning from failure, to embracing failure, it's okay to try something and have it not work. There's something to be learned from that. To create sticky programming, what we call sticky programming, it really means having clear goals. Why are you having this program? Why are you inviting young adults to do this thing? It can also include testing something before you launch it. This is another way to learn from and about our programming, is to, like, if you can, try it with a pilot cohort. Or I will sometimes run things on the wrong audience. Like sometimes before I give a presentation, I can't access that audience, but I have colleagues who I can access, so I'll try it on them. It's not a 100% one-to-one relationship, but it gives you the opportunity to see how this might play out. It also is an opportunity to do formal measuring and assessing. One way to get feedback is to do things like surveys or to do things like one-to-one interviews. It doesn't have to be formal, and it doesn't have to be research, and it doesn't have to be science. But if you can get feedback from actual young adults about what would be useful for them or how they benefited from something you've done, that's useful. And it's also an act of relationship building. Asking for feedback, if you're going to use it responsibly, is a wonderful way to demonstrate to another person, in this case a young adult, that you care about them, that what they think and how they feel is important to you, and you're going to take action on it. So that is another important element of whatever program you might choose to do. So again, here are the 8 domains. These slides will be available to you. You can also find all of this on starforyoungadultministry.org. We are adding some curriculum content that will be available and accessible. And aside from some resources that grantees have generated that are paid, it's all free. We are a gift from Lilly Endowment to the public. And so any way that we can continue to resource you, either through STAR or otherwise, we're very happy to do that. So I think we have a few minutes left still for any questions. If there are some, I'll stop sharing so I can see more of your faces. Oh, I see a question. Is there a difference between work settings and other more social environments? Yes, but not in as many ways as you think. The main difference in a work setting is that people are paid to be there, right? There's a different kind of exchange that's taking place. And so our expectations are different. Things that we would not tolerate interpersonally elsewhere in our life, we will tolerate in a work setting. I think it's useful, though, to keep in mind that just because we are likely to tolerate more things that are distasteful or unpleasant to us in human relationship, just because we could, because we're being paid and they're being paid, doesn't mean we have to, right? A lot of these same principles still apply. And I think especially in the domains of leadership, these are things that might be even more relevant in a workplace. Like creating pathways for young adults to rise through an organization, to take on increasingly more responsibility, and making sure that the way is truly clear with existing leaders to welcome their leadership. Those domains in the workplace might be even more important. Can I talk about expectations of young adults in, oh gosh, things are moving because people have so many questions. Can I talk about expectations of young adults in terms of organizational leadership or other forms of engagement? Do we mean what they expect or what we should expect of them?
What they expect.
What they expect in terms of leadership. I think it's going to be highly variable. And this is actually the most important message that I could possibly deliver about engaging young adults, which is things will be highly variable. There is no way to know what any young adult is expecting in terms of organizational leadership. There's no way to find that out except to ask them. And that's why all these domains focus so heavily on our own relationship behavior, because some young adults might enter into an organizational context and say, oh, I want to run everything here. It is my biggest dream to put on a program. It's my biggest dream to lead an affinity group. The thing I most want to do is like advance this priority. Other young adults, leadership to them might be being seen as like the emotional heart of something. I think we can all think of organizations or workplaces where there is someone who has a lot of influence and we would say is a leader, but they might not be informal leadership. They might not have a title or they might not have certain formal responsibilities, but there's still someone that the group looks to for wisdom or for a way forward. Some young adults might actually really want to do that. And the way you resource them, each of these young adults is going to be very different. And the types of paths you clear and the ways you invite them are going to be wildly different. The only way to find out and to resource them well and to engage them well is to ask good questions, engage them in good relationships so they'll tell you. So I think that's my counsel about that. Okay, let's see. I see. I lead a college mentoring program with 20 to 22-year-olds. Your domains seem equally applicable to this age group. Any reason to adjust our approach on some of the domains? So I actually have some data about this, which is that I gave pretty much the same presentation to the Fraternity Executives Association annual conference. They said, hey, I hear you know something about young adults. And I said, I guess. And so I came to talk to their regular aged adult executives, administrators about what we know about working with young adults. And their context is college age, exactly like this. The feedback that I've received from them is that this stuff translates almost directly into their context. The reason that we excluded in the original sort of programming people in that age is that in a congregational life and ministry perspective, college age kids are just served with different programs than young adults are. That is one difference between college aged and other young adults, is that beyond college, things become quite amorphous quite quickly. for young adults in that age, if they've been to college, they are suddenly cut off from a lot of forms of community, from a lot of relationships, from a lot of leadership opportunities that they had. And if we can, that's a good opportunity for us to step in and help them fill that void. So I think that's the main thing that's different to be aware of between college-aged kids, people who are in college, and people who are not. Otherwise, I think that these domains translate pretty directly.
Kelly, we're going to need to get to the wrap-up moment, but
Okay.
please take one or two more questions, and then we'll move on.
I can. Let's see. Do I have suggestions for how to handle negative comments or attitudes that appear from younger individuals? This is a wonderful question. And I think in part, the way to handle it is the way that you would handle it with anyone. This is a moment to remember that young adults they're also just people. The kinds of negative attitudes or negative comments that you might get from them might be topically different from the kinds of negative attitudes or comments that you would hear from regular aged or older adults. But they will tell you that they're subject to these things too, right? Whereas where a young adult might be saying, making judgments about people of another generation, it happens also on the other side. And so using the tools that we would use with anyone to dispel this negative commentary is going to be useful. And I think, once again, asking the right kinds of questions and using especially that generational literacy comment, like asking them, like, where is this coming from? What's elicited this attitude from you? Is it a misunderstanding about generational differences? Is it a feeling that young adults get overlooked and passed over, which could possibly have some basis in reality? It might not be a reality that you created, but it might be a reality that they've experienced elsewhere. I think going back to this capacity building around asking good questions, listening with empathy, using compassion, and just having good relationship hygiene is always going to be important. So I think that probably concludes the time that I have for questions. I'm so grateful for your participation, for your curiosity. Once again, I am a Star for Young Adult Ministry is very, very available to you. I'm also very available to you. Once again, the whole thing's a gift from Lilly Endowment. So any way that I can resource or help or support you or answer questions, I'm happy to do that. So thank you again for the opportunity to chat to you today.
Thank you so much, Kelly, and for sharing all the insights that you've experienced with your support of Lilly Endowment grantees. The pillars are certainly guidance for us as we continue in our intergenerational work. And speaking of that, moving to allies across ages, this is an initiative that we have, and just a reminder that our role within the Encore Network is to explore, feature, and support initiatives that connect people across generations. We subscribe to the message that Chris Farrell delivered in 2022 in an article he wrote in Next Avenue that declared back then that the future of aging is intergenerational. It affects all of us at the Encore Network, not just our allies across ages affinity group. And Farrell highlighted the various ways in which multiple generations are embracing living, working, and volunteering together. Our current project is focused on a collaborative, intergenerational AI approach with pilots addressing an issue that they want to tackle. Champions of Caring is our first pilot. It will consist of 5 sessions with 10 people, those 10 people being 5 college students and 5 people 15 over. And we'll be conducting this pilot in a purely remote basis. We're looking at other pilots right now, including Encore Network member SAGE with their Young Leaders program. Citizens University is a national organization founded by Ashoka Fellow Eric Liu, and Eric happens to be a good friend of Mark Friedman, who's certainly a good friend of ours. Another organization that is important in our own work, Joint Family, they're based in Boston and they're doing great AI intergenerational work, not only in Boston, but across the country, and they've been very helpful as we have constructed our pilot approach. And then we want to reach out to you and encourage you and our affinity groups, our members, to consider engaging in a fun, rewarding pilot to help us chart our future on the very current topic of AI usage intergenerationally. And what I'd like to do now is introduce Barbara Shaman, founder of Champions of Caring, to share a few thoughts about her organization and her involvement in our pilot process. Barbara? And Barbara, can you unmute yourself?
Can you put it back to the whole group? The view,
You're
the
open to
gallery
everybody
view.
now.
Okay, thanks. Well, thank you so much for having me be part of this. I am a strong believer in the importance of intergenerational collaboration, and we have been working for the past 6 years with Temple University professors, Dr. Tanya Giovanetti, where we have created intergenerational classes to promote intergenerational collaboration in the psychology department at Temple. And the age range in these classes is from 18 to 95. And the relationships that have been formed are truly extraordinary. The professor teaches, some of the seniors, 55 and older, teach, and the students teach as well. And one of the things we're most proud of is one of our participants, Thelma Reese, who at 92 is still speaking once a week, every Sunday for an hour with her partner, who she met when he was a freshman at Temple. And this relationship brings both of them so much joy and has them share their life views on issues and to have a collaborative relationship. We started this during COVID because all generations were feeling very isolated at that point. And we felt that if we could try this as a pilot, and Dr. Giovanetti has done pre and post testing, and you can get the results from us, but it has really shown how much we have in common, how great a need there is for people of different generations to want to get involved with other generations. Because of the success of these courses, the professor and students came to us and said, we'd like to do more. Can we create a cafe style? So we created intergenerational cafes, which are run over a 6-week period. The first and last 2 weeks include everyone on Zoom calls, and the calls in the middle are set up by each of the pairs. And what we wanted to do was to get people to know each other, understand what they care about, what issues are of importance to them, how they could be collaborative, and then move into looking at a social justice issue that really resonates for them now and how they can become collaborative around these issues. So we're very excited that Temple keeps inviting us back to do this, and we're going to work with Jim to look at how can we add the AI component to further our agenda of bringing together different generations to get to know each other and to collaborate around social justice issues. We also have a partner in Austria at a university who's interested in bringing our program global. So I'm very excited about, Jim, what we're doing with adding the AI component. I know Dr. Giovanetti at Temple is very excited about this as well. And I truly believe that when older and younger come together with respect, with an open mind, with an agenda that they buy into to make the world a better place, that is our greatest hope. We're in trouble worldwide, and we all know that. But I think if we can come together with a good spirit and really look at what are the issues that we care about, what are the ones we'd like to address, whom can we collaborate with. I think that's our greatest hope right now. for a better future for all generations.
Barbara, thanks so much. Thanks so much for all the work you've done with Champions of Caring for decades and for uh, taking the lead for our first pilot. And so once again, I reach out to everyone in this audience to consider starting a pilot yourself. Contact me for information. We have resources to assist you. You don't have to have all the experience that Barbara has, but a passion for working intergenerationally and adding an AI component to that relationship that you build is one that we're driving. So before I turn it over to Doug Dixon, co-founder of the Encore Network, for a brief wrap up, I just want to thank once again Kelly for her excellent presentation, all of you for attending, Doug's great work with this meeting and all he does for the Encore Network, and our good friend Aaron Ali for technical support. Doug, for you.
Thanks, Jim, and thanks also to Barbara, to Kelly, to Jim for an excellent program today. We will be following this with an email, as we normally do, to all who are present today, as well as those who signed up. We'll be sending along the recording with the slides.
No.
Okay, we need to, okay. Copy of the slides, some of the resources that have been
Don't
mentioned,
make the bed.
and we'll pass that all.
Don't make the bed. Say I did.
Oh, okay.
Okay, somebody's having trouble with their mute button. Next slide. We want to thank our sponsor for today's program, as Jim mentioned earlier, Encore Palm Beach County, which has joined forces with the Encore Network, and we're grateful for their financial support as well as their collaboration in all of our work going forward. We have a wonderful opportunity to reward people who are thinking about joining the Encore Network at the Encore Pro and Encore Enterprise levels, membership level. We have a store of signed books from Ken Stearns' new book on Healthy to 100. Based on some research that he's done over the last several years, looking at and visiting with people in parts of the world where longevity is the norm. And he's identified what the factors are that support longer lives, and has concluded that social connection is the most important among those variables. He'll be speaking on his book in a couple of weeks, March 12th. So look forward to that. But also take advantage of this opportunity to get a copy of his book signed by him, and at the same time reap the benefits of joining the Encore Network community at the Encore Pro and Encore Enterprise level. You'll be hearing a lot more about this over coming weeks. We want to make sure that as many people as can are able to take advantage of this opportunity. Coming up on March 5th, we have a program on keeping your brain happy. Brain health is an important consideration for all of us. Many of us who are older begin to think more about those things. Actually, we should be thinking about this throughout our lives, and the advice and tips and fun suggestions that Jillian Leithman and Amy Avergun will have on March 5th are well worth the price of admission, which is basically this program is free. So join us on the 5th. Coming up on March 20th is World Happiness Day. Who knew? But there is such a thing, and Dana Hilmer, who is a member of the Encore Network, is certified in the in positive psychology and all of the elements that go into being living a happy life in midlife and beyond. So she'll be talking to us about that on March 20th. So look forward to that as well. And if you like this event and would like to, we don't charge for our events, but we do welcome small contributions. You can text a small donation by entering Give Encore at 44321. So we would appreciate your support and welcome that. Thanks, everyone. Thanks for a wonderful program. Look forward to our follow-up email in a couple of days. And we hope all of you have a wonderful day.